Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Killian, as you probably already know, and I am co-founder at Ruby Reese and at dognutrition.ie, and I'm also going to be your podcast host. Today we're speaking yet again with an amazing guest, and really delighted to be bringing out another episode of this podcast. As you probably know, or if anyone is indeed new to this podcast, we bring out an episode at the moment every second week on a Tuesday. So you can check out our huge back catalogue of episodes, and you can also figure out what we do at Ruby Reese and at dognutrition.ie at the respective websites. And today we're going to be speaking about yet another dog topic, one that's really important and is all about collaborative care in and around pain in our dogs. And pain is not always very well diagnosed or acknowledged, and sometimes it can go unnoticed for quite some time. And we are delighted to have Catherine from Snout and About, who we work with on a daily basis quite a lot. And it is great to have Catherine on to speak about this topic. So without further ado, I'm now going to introduce you to the conversation that I had with Catherine. Hello, Catherine. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for bringing me back again. This is my favourite place to be these days.
Thank you for coming back. I guess for anyone that doesn't know you yet, would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Catherine Griffin. I'm the founder of an organisation called Snout and About. We're a health and behaviour consultancy that works collaboratively, founded in Cork, but we operate throughout Ireland and internationally as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And we picked a really interesting topic to speak about today. We're going to be speaking a little bit about pain, a little bit about, I suppose, that collaboration piece that you really enjoy. Maybe to hone in at the very beginning on the importance of this and to start us off, how do you see behaviour problems where pain is actually the root cause?
It's very interesting. We did some statistics recently. So we capture a lot of data when our clients first come into us. And what we're starting to look at now is to capture some of that data to be like, how many of these cases are actually referring back to pain? So we don't have the actual statistic for it yet, but anecdotally, my team and I, who are behaviourists, behaviour consultants, vets, physios, groomers, trainers, we tend to really see it's almost as high as 90% of our cases are linked back to some kind of physical piece that's causing the animal some kind of pain and discomfort. So it's really high.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that this is overlooked because 90% sounds like a huge number. And I think for me, at least, I would have never guessed it was that high, as you know, from an outside perspective, I suppose. So why do you think pain in dogs is so frequently overlooked?
It is so overlooked. And I think one of the biggest things is like we tend to, whenever there's a problem with our dog, obviously we tend to go to the vet as the first port of call. And in behaviour consultancy, it's always been if there's a sudden change in the animal, you go to the vet. But vets are looking at symptoms. And when we're looking at pain, the only way we can actually truly assess what pain is in an animal is through their behaviour and how they present. So what we need to do is really observational. But in a veterinary capacity, it doesn't allow for the space or the time in a clinical consultation capacity to actually observe the animal and observe changes and observe all those small little nuances and patterns that they do. People tend to think of pain as just a purely physical piece, but it's an emotional piece. Pain is an emotional piece. And that's not something that we can capture in a clinical setting because we're reviewing symptoms. Our vets have their role and their job to do in that capacity. But with behaviour consultancy, you're getting to observe and monitor an animal over a length of time. So we see it, but unfortunately, it's not something that can be very well captured or documented when we're addressing it through the clinical lens. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I suppose I'm guessing at least, one of the main pieces here as well is that like dogs can't tell us when something hurts, so like there might be more subtle types of pain, of course we all think, of something very kind of very obvious or very almost like something from the stage or from Charlie Chaplin kind of pieces and stuff, very overly obvious indicators of a limping dog or whatever. But what happens when it's a toothache? What happens when it's headaches? I don't know. Do dogs get migraines? So dogs can't tell us when something hurts, and I'm guessing that's a huge deal as well, right?
It is, yeah. But the thing is, they do tell us, but it's very
Hmm.
subtle. And it's
Yeah.
something that we're not necessarily going to see day to day. And it's really difficult for owners to see it because when you're living with that dog and it's your lived experience, we miss all these subtle things and all these subtle changes. So they are communicating, but it's in very subtle, small ways. And it's in ways that people don't necessarily expect. Like our dogs are designed, because as much as we don't like to think of our dogs as actual animals, because they're, we treat them like our children and our friends,
Hmm.
but they are animals at the end of the day. And part of their survival is hiding, masking pain. Don't look vulnerable. Don't look like there's a weakness in place. And
Hmm.
so much of it is misconstrued. Like one of the biggest things that we always see is hyperactive behavior. And people commonly say, my dog can't be hurting because look how crazy they are. They're running around and they're bouncing, they're jumping off of things. And this is where we lead back to the whole kind of adrenaline induced analgesic effect that hyperactive behaviors can have on the animal
Hmm.
that is actually indicative of them being in pain, usually some of the more severe pains as well, especially for some of the kind of musculoskeletal things that we look at. So they are communicating, but it's way more complex than I tend to feel them we actually give credit to for how they're communicating these particular sore points, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, and I suppose it's a little bit of a failing on the human animal as well. We expect to be told something a lot of the time, and the dogs obviously don't have great, I suppose, verbal language, but they do have great body language. So even if they're not masking something and they do want to tell us, we might not be great on the uptake. So,
Yeah.
totally
And I
get
think
that as well.
there's definitely an emotional piece for the owners as well, because nobody likes to think of their dog in pain. So it can be a bitter pill to swallow if we think that our dog might be slightly uncomfortable as well. And when we think about
Hmm.
the human comparative of that, we're all given pain relief when we're babies. We get Calpol, for example, we get paracetamol. If something is sore, we
Hmm.
communicate that and the pain is taken away from us through medications. But it's something that we tend to find a lot of people are a little bit unwilling to or uncomfortable to investigate and explore further is the thoughts of pain relief for dogs as young as puppies. Like our puppies have pain receptors the moment they are born. They can feel physical pain, and pain exists in so many ways, like you're saying, in the smallest things like headaches or even having a fever, for example. Do you know, all these things can create bodily functions that are indicative of pain and discomfort.
Mm. And I'm thinking now a little bit as well about like, how we might reason away kind of repetitive behavior as, that's my dog's quirk, he or she always does that. He has this weird thing of rubbing his ear on the carpet. And do you often see also that pain is kind of explained away, and it comes from a good place obviously, but it's it might be explained away a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, it just comes back to that kind of awareness piece. Because when a dog is doing something kooky or funny or crazy like that, isn't this cute? Isn't this funny? Let's put it on TikTok.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, what we're actually observing is an animal being like really uncomfortable. There was a nice example I saw recently, somebody shared with me, and it was a video of a dog just not wanting to get down onto the floor off the couch. And they're making this big drama about getting down onto the floor.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, through a trained eye, you could see that the dog was massively uncomfortable about the anticipation of going from this level to this level onto shiny, slippery floor surfaces.
Oh yeah.
And you could also see when you're looking at it through that kind of physical observation lens, the dog's conformity wasn't right. Like there was something going on, and it made for a very cute, hilarious video, but what you're actually seeing is an animal that's like, if I put my paw there or my leg there, I'm going to have pain and it's going to feel
Yeah.
very uncomfortable and I want to avoid it. So we see a lot of these kind of videos repeating, and we see a lot of these kind of, again, kind of looking at these behaviors like there's something cute or quirky, whereas actually behavior is always functional. An animal is not doing something to be cute and quirky. An animal is doing something because it's functional for their survival and their comfort at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that leads on to a point as well that, we as owners or guardians, or however you would like to label yourself, we have a responsibility as well to advocate for our dogs. So, and of course, we spend the most amount of time usually with our dogs. Um, are there any particular subtle signs we should be looking out for for our dogs?
Definitely. So usually any change is usually the first thing that we look at. Okay, so behavior has changed, responsiveness has changed. Some of the big things that can be overlooked is things like rest patterns. If your dog is crazy hyperactive, or if they're completely subdued as well. And I think a lot of that kind of leads into where we are essentially looking at an animal in a state of learned helplessness. Like there's some kind of inescapable pressure on them. So you
Mhm.
could be the best kind of, treat-based, positive reinforcement-based trainer in the world. You could have all your dog's needs met. But one of the big needs our animals can't meet for themselves is escape from discomfort. So what we tend to see a lot of the time is dogs who look like they're very compliant or obedient is actually a dog in that level of inescapable pain and discomfort, leading to the psychological state of learned helplessness. So those changes are difficult to map and measure, because when it comes to that kind of shut down suppressive state that pain can bring in a dog, can actually, from the human perspective, be like, my dog's really well behaved and obedient.
Mhm.
So it's those kind of very robotically well-behaved dogs that we see sometimes are always a little bit of a red flag for me about pain and discomfort, because we know ourselves as dog owners, dogs aren't supposed to be that level all the time. We want to see fluctuations in behavior or the way that they present. And yeah, there's so many red flags. Any change in energy is usually one of the biggest pieces that we would start to look into if they're too
Okay.
slow, too fast. But then we also see eating. And one of the biggest things we always hear, you guys will be well familiar with this, is my dog's appetite has changed. They're picky. They're a fussy
Mhm.
feeder. They don't want to eat. And it's usually one of the first signs that there's something else going on as well, that we definitely warrants investigation. Doesn't mean there's definitely something going on, but it means it is definitely something that needs to be investigated, whether it's to do with the teeth. I've seen dogs lose appetite because of other pain, or like ear infections are a huge thing, and suddenly not wanting to eat. Like you could even imagine with acute ear pain, how loud crunching could be in the sensitive ears of a dog. Something as simple as that, or because of that motor action, that little piece of the jaw there against the ear canal. Or of course, gush pain, which is a big hot topic that we are all talking so much about at the moment, and the importance of understanding visceral pain as well as musculoskeletal.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I know, like, we obviously work with a lot of cases with Snout and About on the nutrition side, being nutritionists. And Chris and I see loads of these examples. And even, kind of bowl height is something that crops up every now and then, with kind of neck pain and even front paw pain. It could potentially be, I guess. And there's so many different things that could be to do with the food. And I suppose it's very difficult to pull apart the he or she is just a picky eater, because it could be the case, but often there's a reason behind it as well. And it's really important to get to the bottom of it, particularly if there's pain.
Yeah.
um and I also wanted to ask a little bit about, I suppose, if we're using training because we think we've got a behavioral problem, and we're giving treats and rewards for I suppose, behaviors that we want to encourage, and a dog is actually struggling through pain. Do you think this could potentially make problems worse?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge
Mhm.
thing that is so massively overlooked and I think the expectation is, and I know even with working with a load of my mentees, for example, and supporting them through kind of tackling these bigger cases, it's like, don't go in as a training issue, strip it all back. There's something emotionally out of sync with that animal to be responding in this way. And that's the first step that we need to tackle. So if an animal is presenting with pain and we try and train new behaviors, I mean, there's so many things that aren't going to work in that situation. So even the smallest training pieces like mat work, settle work, relaxation protocols, if an animal isn't physically comfortable sitting, you're making that situation aversive for the learner because
Mhm.
you're putting a level of social pressure on them to do something, to comply to something. They will want a reward, of course. Just because they're taking the food, it doesn't mean that they're kind of in it for that, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So very often, even with the best training mechanics and technical training skills, if there is discomfort in the animal, we risk making training toxic. And I've seen this. I've seen this in cases that I used to work many years ago when I was kind of first starting out, and you get really excited about going in as a training heavy piece, but you're
Mhm.
essentially making learning toxic. You're making communication in your relationship toxic because you're actually suppressing and being aversive, even though you're using treats, timing mechanics, technically flawless. If the animal isn't feeling good, it's still not going to work for them. Neurologically as well, when we think about that side of things, it's very difficult for new learning to occur and for those new pathways to be built when we're essentially in that elevated state of survival. It's not conducive to our needs to
Mhm.
learn something new if we feel that we need to protect our own safety and survival first. So it can be a real mess and it can really delay things. And it's usually where we see training programs fall really flat for people as well, or when they really start to plateau, we don't see the progress that we want. So yeah, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit in terms of training mechanics, even the most wonderful, brilliant, welfare, ethical led training practices can be aversive if we're not looking after the animal physically first.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. You have to get to the root cause and solve, the root of the cause first, and then
Yeah.
kind of start building up from there, I guess. Um, and I suppose we've spoken a little bit about trainers, and we know that there can be amazing collaboration with among all sorts of different professionals. So now vets often do get involved in these situations. From the perspective as a behaviourist, what kind of role do you think a veterinary assessment should play, either before, during, after, alongside behaviour modification?
Ooh, I like that question. So yeah, and before, during, alongside, always, you need the full case team, which obviously, as you know yourself, is everything that we've
Mhm.
tried to build with Snout and About. The one thing that might sound controversial is there's been this golden rule: if there's a change in behavior, get to your vet straight away. I'm not sure it should work quite that way in many regards and respects. And I know that sounds a little bit controversial, but
Mhm.
we need the observational piece with the classification of symptoms approach as well. So the
Mhm.
classification of symptoms is the vet piece, the observational piece comes from the behavior side of things. So with a lot of the work that we tend to see more behavior professionals steering towards at the moment, it's very observation and data heavy. And it's video analysis, gait analysis, eating analysis. I've started using even chew tests. Can I, if there's something that's indicating there's something wrong with the gut or the teeth, like where does the dog
Mhm.
actually put pressure on its mouth when it's having a chew or when it's eating and feeding? Our vets in Ireland, anyway, they just don't have the time to dedicate to observations in that way.
Yeah.
So needs to be a collaboration that is, here is all the information I have. I've done all the back work for you. I've got all the information about the animal's developmental history, learning history, clinical records, everything that we are thinking is adding up that might be XYZ. Can you look into that from a symptomatic perspective and draw up your conclusions and treat as necessary or as is appropriate, whether that's pain relief or further diagnostics or anything, but that communication keeps going. So that's very much how we work with our vets and with our physiotherapists, which our physiotherapists definitely need to be spoken about more, potentially in terms of that first line or first frontline team for actually investigating into physical pain for our animals in terms of like their gait or the musculoskeletal pieces. Like they're the best guys in the business to be assessing this stuff, not vets or behavior consultants. So I think having particularly that triangle of professionals from physio to clinical to behavior all joining in together from day dot is very important.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually now that you mention it, because it throws me back to Ruby's story with her luxating patella years and years ago when she was quite young. We were going to a fantastic vet that wasn't sure whether her patella luxation needed to be operated on, and we were forwarded on to a specialist, which was great, and the specialist had said no, not necessary at the current stage that it's in. We'll probably need to work with anti-inflammatories every 6 months or whatever, and maybe some exercises and things like that. Through our own research, we had found a brilliant canine physiotherapist and hydrotherapist who we all know. Shout out to Claire. And we I suggested this to our normal vet then, would this be worthwhile looking into for management? And he said, of course, I always forget about physiotherapy. It's just something that doesn't always cross my mind, but of course this is a brilliant idea. Hydro is a brilliant idea for this particular ailment, and we've been managing it conservatively with kind of that approach for years now, and Ruby's doing great, and she's never needed to go through the surgery and the recovery from it just because of that. So it's fantastic, but sometimes you're right, you need to have kind of the right people, and it was just luck that we happened to know about this ourselves, but yeah, you need to have the right people on board. So sometimes I guess a lot of the physios can help us as well in some of these kind of assessments.
Hugely. And again, it's that whole kind of lovely triage model of being like seeing the right professional at the right time. And physiotherapy it prevents degenerative conditions, essentially. That we can manage pain, but we need to prevent that from getting worse too. And it was even, myself, I had back problems there recently. And it was so interesting because it really gave me such a clear insight into how pain can affect you behaviorally, and affect your appetite, affect your sensitivity to sound, to touch, anticipation of someone coming towards you. Like, your whole nervous system is a million miles an hour. But I wasn't treated with one pain med. I didn't have one diagnostic in terms of like imaging. It was, I have to try this and then this and then this. And we're taking pain relief for inflammation, but also pain relief that works on more of a neuropathic level. And then there was other pain relief to actually help support muscle relaxation. And I think a lot of people go into the conversation with their dogs thinking, well, we just give it a pain relief and it will be fine. Our bodies and our dog bodies are incredibly similar and way more complex than just that. And I think that's also something where it falls flat, is people think, well, I tried giving them pain relief and it didn't help. But it's like, there needs to be multi-channels. And this is where that communication between the physio, the vet, and the behavior consultant is so important. So we're observing the dog in a clinical perspective with physio and the vet stuff, but essentially the vet is treating, but the behavior consultant or, if you've a really good trainer, they're the person in the background who is monitoring and observing the changes and shifts in behavior over time, to work out if that's relevant for them, whatever workup that they're on in terms of pain relief. But physio, and again, like that, my back isn't going to magically fix itself. I actually, dog damn it, need to get into the gym and do some form of exercise to build the supportive connecting tissues around that area in order for it not to get worse. And it's the same for our dogs. And we kind of forget that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about all of this collaboration, you've got some exciting news to share, I think, and I think it's a good time to bring that up as well, because you've been working on a little project that's really, really going to help, lots of people and lots of professionals when we're talking about dogs and potential pain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I got into this weird and wonderful world, I actually worked. I worked in graphic design and tech and like web design and stuff like that. I was always into that. So I'm very fortunate that I have those skills that I can bring into this industry. And it's something we were talking about last year, and we were wanting to launch this kind of pain aware app that people can use. It's free. It's still in the kind of prototype development stages at the moment, but it's actually really, really successful. And a few of my vets are using it in clinic now as well. So you just go along to snoutandabout.ie and click on Pain Aware. So the idea of this app is to create a kind of body mapping solution to where pain might be occurring in the animal. And it's really simple. It's like kind of 10 sort of sets of questions. There's about 5 questions in each category. It's really important to state it's not diagnostic. It's to be used in a hypothetical way. And so many people work with dogs, and so many people don't carry or yet carry the qualifications, certifications that they need to do this stuff. I'm not a vet, and vets aren't behavior consultants. So a lot of our work still bridges and crosses over. So the idea for the app was to be something solutions based, that at least you make sure you're not missing the mark with something, that you can literally sit with your client in their home and go through the questions. And it's going to create 2 reports. One is client facing, so your client can understand the findings. And then the second report you can download is vet facing, so it's clinical. So you've already got your veterinary referral done up. You just download the PDF and you're like, right, I'm going to give this to the vet because this is what this report is telling us. And the reason for it is most trainers go into these situations training a dog without observing the animal's most basic needs first to be physically comfortable and free of pain and distress. So that is a problem that's always going to exist in our industry. Until one day, please dog, it does finally become regulated. So whilst that problem exists, we just wanted to create a tool that means that people can actually do the very best they can by the animal in their care, that the person is paying them to help and support by not missing that mark. It's completely free to use, doesn't store any data. It's just you log onto our website, you sit with your client, you do it, it creates you a beautiful PDF. It's not like Snout and About branded or anything, it's just the Pain Aware app. So you can use that then and send that on to the referring veterinarian. And it kind of breaks things down from visceral pain to musculoskeletal to other pieces, other bits and bobs. And it's constantly being developed in the background. So even if it doesn't produce everything you think it should at this point, it's going to get better and better and better and better as I work to build and develop that in the background. So yeah, very excited. Use it. Please, everybody use it. It's really...
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed hearing about it, because, it's so important to have kind of a framework for our thoughts as well. Like you say, people don't have time, and I think we need to take time to pull apart, dogs' potential pain, and this gives us a framework just to work through and be able to say, yeah, I hadn't covered that point. I forgot to think about the teeth or whatever. We're not superhumans, and like this is a great tool for us to use. It's not going to take away from you as a professional, no matter what profession you're in, because we need that too. We need your knowledge and your eye to say, well, maybe we need to look at this area more. But like you say, it's a great tool to just say, yeah, that's an area we should look at. We've had a lot of kind of flags here in this area. And that's really, really amazing, I think, for progress for us as a kind of a dog loving community. And I suppose it's hopefully going to help us all collaborate a lot better, right?
Yes, please. I am quite a fan of the collaboration piece, and I think so. And I mean, it's something that you can even give to our dog nutritionists, like yourselves, so everybody is clear on what is going on with this animal inside and out. So we can all bring our various levels of expertise, because nobody knows it all. And I think that's another downfall of our industry is people profess to know everything about a particular area. We don't. You want to do it well, you stick to your one chosen profession and you do that as well as you can, and pull in other people with the same mindset, the same kind of community collaboration, values driven work to bring excellence and expertise all to the same table for that one particular dog. And these reporting systems and these apps, as we generate and as we build them and try and make them something more, is going to be something that can create a simple language that speaks to the vet, the nutritionist, the consultant, the trainer, the physiotherapist, the groomer. So everybody can see exactly what's going on with this particular animal. And it just makes collaboration so much easier. Because when I talk to vets, sometimes I'm like, sorry, what? That's not my language. I'm not vet tech. Or if I talk to like one of our amazing physios like Claire or Deirdre, I'm like, what? I have no idea what that particular tendon is. Where is that? Is it in the ear or the tail? No idea. So, or even when I'm conversing with you guys about the complexities of the nutritional pieces, it's not my language. And I think if we can collaborate and create tools that make that language understandable and accessible to everybody while still at a very high performing clinical level, that's only something that can serve to protect the welfare of the animals that we care for the future. So that's kind of one of the big drives for doing this, and for the collaboration pieces as well, of course.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I think we all want to get our job done. You know, like you say, the groomer wants to do an amazing job at grooming. The nutritionist wants to prepare an amazing plan specifically tailored to this dog. You know, the trainer wants to get in there, the vet wants to get in there and do their piece. You know, we all want to just get our job done, and I think this helps us, like you say, communicate with each other. I'm wondering, is time kind of the major barrier that stops professionals working together more effectively? You know, the time to kind of reach out, and the time to, like you say, put together a framework and a language to even pass on the information. Like, how do I explain this to the other professional that has their own area of expertise? Is that's what's stopping us from working together more closely usually?
I don't think so. I think it's systems based. I think it's having more efficient communication systems. I don't think it's about time. So obviously you're aware, as working in part of the wider team, how these kind of things interlink with one another. And I think it's just about refining things. I actually think it's about having really good personal policies for your business and organization to say, when I hit this, I don't know, this is where I send it. When I hit this, I don't know, this is where I send it. I also think particularly more so in terms of, behavior and grooming and veterinary. I think everybody is so in their niche area of what they do. It's not something that's ever been tackled in Ireland before, like this kind of cross case share piece that's like really, really inclusive for lots of people. And I think the problem with time comes from the fact that people are so darn busy doing their job and trying to get it done and seeing to their clients and trying to get results and being very developed in that the time actually comes from, the time problem is just actually having the space and the time to sit down to yourself to be like, who do I talk to? Who do I reach out to? I know certainly in training and behavior cycles and circles, it's, you know, we all know that it can be incredibly clicky and difficult and confrontational sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just actually taking a step back and addressing things from like more of a business model perspective, rather than I am self-employed and I want to do good at my job and have my clients tell me I'm good at what I do, and actually look at organizing more of these structures through the lens of someone like, imagine you had a massive organization with all the people in the different departments. How do we communicate? How do we talk? And that stuff needs structures, and those things need policies as well to a degree. And I think it is hard. Again, there's a lot of pressure on the clinical side in veterinary that they're expected to know everything from dissecting.
Fix this dog.
Yeah. This is my dog. It is broken. Do the things to it. It's like,
exactly.
I'm a doctor, essentially.
and that's it. It's so important, and like you mentioned, you brought it to the human level earlier with your back pain, and I think it's so relevant, because when you think about a hospital, I mean, the cardiologist doesn't go down and just decide on a whim that they're going to, do an X-ray or something. It's just not going to happen, because there are structures in place. There's a normal referral process. There's there's systems in place, like you say, to make things work, so that specialists are doing their specialist thing,
Yeah.
and not a specialist of another brilliant area doing something that they
Yeah.
know maybe a little bit less about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And
So.
that's why I so champion the likes of sort of Vet Specialist Island for that. The amazing Catherine, the skin vet.
Mhm,
Like, if you know so much about one specific area, you know it is very unlikely you're going to get anything wrong.
mhm,
You cannot know it all. So pulling on all those different people and talking more about that veterinary GP referral system, but that includes nutrition, it includes mental behavioral health, it includes coat and skin and grooming and things like this. It includes all of those pieces. Like, I'm not going to ask my doctor, what physio exercises do I need to fix my back? I want to see a physiotherapist. Thank you very much. I'm not
mhm.
going to talk to my doctor about, I'm not feeling myself and I need to talk behaviorally to somebody. I'm not going to ask my doctor to suddenly become a therapist or a psychiatrist. You need to go to
Yeah.
that specific special person for that. The more we work to operate on those levels as an industry, the stronger it's going to become.
Mhm,
I do think a lot of people within the animal industry can struggle in terms of broaching those communications and those networks as well, which is where it kind of strips back to, I suppose, just more like the kind of business acumen of how you build
mhm.
those relationships and how you actually reach out to people and get them on board working with you in the first place. And I think that's something we can all do better with, no matter if you've been in it 10 seconds or 10,000 years. It's something that we all need to continuously work to strive for, is developing community and collaboration.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think, like, as we can kind of grow as a community and evolve a little bit as a dog community as well, new things come available, new professions even exist. I don't know how long canine physiotherapy has been available in Ireland. I don't know how long a lot of these, nutrition, I don't know how long it's been available, but I can imagine that in the 70s and 80s, that these things may not have existed for dogs,
Yeah.
at least. Um, so,
And culture as well, when
and
you look into
culture.
it. Ireland is agricultural. So like even with the veterinary has always been an agricultural practice here historically.
Mhm,
So it's not taken looking at the animal as a whole and that full picture. I suppose I won't go on my capitalist rant. I promise you that. But I suppose animal care in Ireland has been more of the capitalist approach about agriculture rather than
mhm,
actually looking at the individual animal through more of an ethical and welfare lens. So
mhm,
the baseline education doesn't yet exist in Ireland for people going to like vet med school.
mhm.
And I think that's a huge place that we need to look at tackling as well,
Yeah.
to get that message and that incentive in there from the ground up.
And that's obviously not a critique on the individual vet that has been learning. It is, on the system, like you say, it's the systems need to be in place so that that the correct education can be passed on. And it's definitely not reflective of an individual. Talking,
No,
yeah. Sorry, I wanted to also broach another kind of more like slightly sensitive topic as well, because it's quite difficult to hear that your dog is could be experiencing pain, um, and professionals have to deliver this information from time to time, and mightn't be the most comfortable thing. And it's of course a lot easier to say, we'll give them a treat while they're doing X and they'll be fine. Talking about, broaching the serious piece of your dog might be in serious pain, and let's get, a professional to look at that. How do we broach telling people that kind of information, and how, I suppose, as dog lovers, dog owners, dog guardians, how should we be receiving this information as well?
Because it's hard. Nobody wants to hear their baby's in pain.
Mhm.
And it instantly makes you feel guilt for not having seen it, or I did not spot
Yeah.
that, or how did I not get that? So it's such a careful, sensitive area. It's such a good question, because once we're going through these support and investigation pieces with our clients, we literally need to be there to support them, because it can be hard to hear and it can be hard to get your head around it. And last thing we want is our clients to feel guilt, because, as I always say, if you've reached out for professional support, you're already one of the best dog owners in the whole entire world, because you're doing everything you can to make things right.
Mhm.
But from the professional perspective of broaching it, the only way that can be done sensitively is through data and observations. Otherwise, it sounds anecdotal. I think your dog might be is not good enough. It needs to be like, so you said they suddenly started taking food out their bowl and dropping it on the floor to eat, whilst also being avoidant of being touched on their stomach when they used to like it, or all of a sudden they're going slow. Let's look at these things. All right, okay, so this, and this might point to something going on that's outside my remit. So I think that's going to warrant a bit more of a clinical investigation route. So these are
Mhm.
the things I'm going to suggest we do, and then put that referral letter together for the vet to say behaviors are XYZ. Really interested to hear your thoughts on XYZ.
Mhm.
So I think, and I've definitely been guilty of this in my past as well, when we try to be too emotive in delivering of this information, it can have a negative impact. And I think if we actually just really stick to our observational database guns when we're delivering that information, it's going to have better success. It's going to make more sense for the client. They're going to understand it more. And the only way we're going to do that is through literally looking at and observing the animal and saying, do you know, because we're seeing this and this and this linked together, there is a potential that that might be something that we actually need your vet to look into,
Mhm.
and to never overstep those professional boundaries and diagnose. So, like in behavior work, whenever we're talking about physical health, it's hypothetical always. It could be, let's get that looked at by someone who's actually specialist in that area, because we just want to rule that out. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think delivering it more
Factually.
constructively,
Mhm.
factually, is probably the best route to take. I do find, even though we always take care not to anthropomorphize our animals and all the rest of it, but like my back story, is it weird that I'm really happy that happened to my back? Because it's given me a really good
Mhm.
story to actually be able to use to say, I get it. Like, it's literally this, 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 and this. So sometimes using those human analogies can be helpful as well, I think, in those situations. And telling people, like, don't worry. Saying your dog is in pain does not mean, oh my God, your dog is in like this terrible, woeful state, which I think is how most people hear and receive that. And it almost makes the owner feel like they've been neglecting their animal when they haven't. Dogs don't come with manuals. It's our job to be able to identify these things for them and put them on the right path and connect them to the right professionals who can actually help. So keeping it factual, on point, but also reassuring too, to be like, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like, did you get Calpol when you were about 6 months old? Yeah, me too. We all get these things from time to time. The important thing
Yeah.
is recognizing when they happen, and essentially making sure that the animal is treated so they feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we are so human centric that, kind of comparing things to humans really does help us understand, we're definitely living in our own worlds. And I think people do really understand that, if I stub my toe, the likelihood of me being slightly, less tolerable or snappy or any of these things, it might have an effect on my behavior for a while. I think
Yep.
that can really help us kind of, get to where we want to be with certain conversations. So you're right. I think, making it kind of a little bit more easy for us to grab hold of the concept as well.
Yep, definitely.
We briefly interrupt this podcast to bring you a message from our dear sponsors, ourselves at dognutrition.ie. If you feel your dog's diet is not optimised for them, you can sign up for a free discovery call on our website. This is an opportunity for you to provide us some details of where your dog is at right now and we can see if we're the right professionals to help you on your journey. After this call, you can make an informed decision about moving forward to a consultation with dognutrition.ie. Thank you for your attention. Now we will get back to the podcast. Okay, and then, when we're building these professional networks, I can imagine sometimes it works really, really well, and lots of people are quite extroverted and love making connections. And then there might be, kind of professional connections that take a little bit longer to work at. I'm thinking maybe about our trainers or our physios, where maybe they'd like to build up kind of a good professional working relationship with vets, and the vets might not necessarily want to speak with them or might not have the time to speak with them. How would you recommend building those relationships in a kind of a positive way?
Yeah, it's such a cool question, and it's such a big thing that we're always getting asked about as well, because it is different and difficult for a lot of people to really be able to manage those kind of, especially when we're looking at it, it's corporate partnerships, right? We're looking at other people that we can bring on board to support the work that we're doing. And when we're approaching that, I think one of the most important things to remember is to be respectful to the individual as a professional. And that goes, no matter if you're trainer, vet, physio, groomer, it's to be really respectful of that individual's expertise. And within every single industry, levels of professionalism and expertise varies widely, massively, hugely. Find yourself those little niche corners of all the animal industry where somebody does actually treat themselves first and foremost as a professional in their field and what they do. And if it's not the right fit for you, then it's not the right fit. So, there are people that maybe won't want to be as open and collaborative, but that's okay, because there's going to be someone else out there who is. And I think focusing your energy and your efforts into finding those people rather than being frustrated by knockback is probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself. And I think parking the human ego slightly sometimes to realize that people working in clinical fields, for example, the pressure they're under and what their understanding of your individual field is completely different. And it's your responsibility, if you want to make those connections, is to make those connections work and uphold yourself to really high professional standards in terms of your business relationship building and networking. And there's great ways that you can do that. And I think something I always advise my mentees, for example, is find really good TED Talks on YouTube about leadership and communication and all these kinds of things, and use that to improve building that for the better industry in Ireland, essentially, because that's all we want. We all just want a way better industry. But we can't just sit back and wait for that to happen. We all have our individual pieces to play to make that perfect. But find those core key professionals who are going to make your work shine, and you can help support make their work shine too, which is important. So it's all about that kind of mutual respect piece that you would expect from any professional industry.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting, the way you've explained that, because not every professional is going to be the right fit for you, and that's okay. I suppose it takes a mindset shift sometimes to think about a network like a web, and if left doesn't work, then right is another way to go, and there's going to be a different professional or a different similar professional out there that might just be looking for that type of networking connection and that referral capability in the future. So that's so good to think about as well. Going back to pain to kind of round things out at the end here as well. Is there anything that we've forgotten about? Is there any one key message that you'd like dog owners or professionals to take away about pain and behavior?
Oh, gosh, yes, so many. But I think the main thing is, I think for dog professionals, particularly within training fields, not to underestimate how large and big a problem pain is in our dogs. In the same way that it is for us throughout our entire life. So people can be very skeptical about using pain medication, but you're not going to let a 1-year-old infant human baby scream and cry it out in pain and just call them bold without looking into why they're feeling that way in the first place. The behavior for the animal is always functional. So a lot of the time, some of these functions are because they're looking for relief from pain. So I think for our kind of professional bodies, it's always looking at physical comfort before anything else, because it's so prevalent, and especially with breeding and obviously the problems that we have in Ireland around breeding and things like that. And I think for our dog owners, it's to be okay with the fact that pain exists. Like pain is part of life for us all, and it's very functional. Pain isn't a bad thing. Pain isn't something to be like, my dog is in pain, this is awful. It's like, I've identified there is pain happening for my dog, so I can now make them feel better. And that's so important. It's not a bad thing. It's like, okay, brilliant. So we know how to treat that. And we can do that with the right supporting veterinary input and obviously behavior observation pieces. And obviously I'm very fortunate that I work with the more progressive side of veterinary in Ireland, which is amazing. I'm very fortunate for that. And more vets are starting to take the whole pain piece that bit more seriously. Again, as an agricultural veterinary industry, it's always seen things like, a hop and a limp or a luxating patella or being off food they're just fussy and all these kinds of things. And we're seeing a massive shift away from that. So I think for a lot of people who work in the industry, we tend to see a lot of the frustrations with pain not being recognized, but we're actually seeing it being more and more recognized than ever before and treated, which is fantastic. It always burns when you get that case where they're like, the dog's fine. You're like, they're definitely not okay. That hurts still, of course. We are designed to feel those emotions more as well as humans, but we are seeing more and more cases being successfully treated. Everything is moving in the right direction, albeit a little bit slowly, but it's all moving in the right direction, which is fantastic. And the only way we can ever actually assess for pain is through behavioural observation. And I think that is one of the main pieces we all need to consider. And that takes the dog's owner, the dog's trainer, the dog's behaviour consultant, the physiotherapist, and the vet in order to get that right for the animal.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine, for coming on and sharing so much about this incredible topic, incredibly important topic. Thank you as well for, of course, designing and releasing to the world this Pain Aware app. I think it's so important and such great progress for our dog community. Can't wait to have you back. I'm going to rope you into another episode very, very soon, no doubt. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing during this one.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is always such a pleasure.
Thank you, Catherine. Speak soon.
Bye.
Once again, a ginormous thank you to Catherine for coming on and sharing with us this week. You as the listener are also really, really appreciated. So please do continue listening into our podcast episodes. We do this for you and for the dog community. And it is definitely a labour of love on our part, particularly from our guests and also from the Ruby Reese and dognutrition.ie side. We're absolutely delighted to be able to share in building this amazing dog community that we have in Ireland, and also see our podcast gaining traction abroad as well. So welcome to any of you joining in from abroad. You would help this podcast so much if you would share out a clip to your stories or to a friend that you think might be interested in listening in. You'd also help us out even by writing a little comment in wherever you're listening to this underneath if you have any thoughts on this topic. And of course, liking, subscribing and doing all that fun stuff as well. If you would like to find out a little bit more about what Catherine gets up to at Snout and About, you can definitely find loads of links in the show notes. And you can also find direct links, of course, to Ruby Reese and to dognutrition.ie. Thank you very much for listening in, and we hope to see you very soon.